Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. This is Boris Dizenghausen with you. It's December 11th. There are a lot of important news stories today, and some of them are good. So in this episode, Ukraine's naval drones are once again attacking Russia's Shadow Fleet. This time, a tanker carrying $60 million worth of cargo was hit. Putin is going to have a fit of rage over this. There was a massive drone raid on Russia last night. Chemical plants with components for explosives are burning, and Moscow's airports were paralyzed. For the first time, Ukraine is striking Russia's oil rigs in the Caspian Sea, and this problem is much more serious than the strikes on oil refineries. And in Europe, the ghost fleet has been exposed. It turns out that Russian civilian ships are secretly launching spy drones over NATO bases. The Russian Federation's Foreign Minister Lavrov has once again sworn that Russia will not attack Europe. Meanwhile, the US is discussing a shocking plan to reintegrate Russia into the global economy. All this and more in today's episode. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff. If this is your first time on this channel, welcome. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes. So the SBU's Sea Baby naval drones struck the Russian Shadow Fleet tanker Dashan in the Black Sea. The vessel, sailing under the flag of the Comoros Islands, was moving through Ukraine's exclusive economic zone toward the Novorossiysk terminal. Let's watch a video to see how it happened. This was a joint operation by the SBU and the Ukrainian Navy. As a result, the tanker sustained critical damage and was put out of commission. Let me remind you how these tankers from the Shadow Fleet transport Russian oil under sanctions. First of all, they turn off their transponders so that no one can see them entering a Russian port and loading up on oil and petroleum products there. Well, what can you do? What can you do? But this is already the fifth one. Do you know what I'd like to point out? The fifth tanker so far. The whole world is used to hearing threats from Putin, and he is used to people being afraid of him. But Ukraine has shown that there's nothing to be afraid of, that he's not worth fearing. Just recently, Putin said, if you attack the Shadow Fleet again, Ukraine, I'll cause you serious trouble there. He threatened to cut the ports off from the sea, and who knows what else he threatened to do. Ukraine replied, get lost, you miserable moth. That's it, that's all. And they attack his Shadow Fleet, and even his nuclear triad is under attack. And his Black Sea Fleet keeps getting sunk. Putin hates Ukraine with a burning hatred, and Ukrainians too. It was the Ukrainians specifically who ruined the triumph of his 25-year rule. So what was his plan? He thought, I'll quickly take Ukraine. A few days, well, in the worst case, a few weeks, and then move on. Unrecognized Transnistria, of course, then the capture of Moldova. After that, triumphantly annex Belarus. And then he could cut off the Suwalki corridor, which runs from Belarus to the Kaliningrad region. And then he could block the Baltic countries, cutting them off from the rest of NATO, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. I think he was even planning to strike them as well. But Ukraine ruined all those plans for him. That's why the Kremlin rat is so furious. So all those myths at the start of the war, remember? We are one people. Ukrainians and Russians are one people. All these myths have been completely shattered by the fierce resistance of Ukrainians. After all, if we are one people, then why are Ukrainians willing to give their lives just to avoid being under Russia's oppression? Where's the logic in that? I think many Ukrainians were shocked when acquaintances from Russia started calling them and saying, hang in there, we'll liberate you, everything will be fine. I got calls like that myself. I completely cut off contact with all those people. Well, let's put it this way, it's more accurate to call them characters. They genuinely thought we needed to be liberated. I remember those calls. They were also really surprised when I said, we don't need to be liberated, just stay over there in your swamps and leave us alone. Did you notice how the attitude has changed? At the start of the war, it was all about us being one people, that we needed to be liberated, that we just didn't understand yet. Now, all of us Ukrainians are supposedly Nazis, Satanists, cruel and merciless Ukro-Saxons. And now, because of us, life has gotten much worse for Russians over there. Taxes are going up, prices are rising, the internet is being cut off, drones are coming, missiles are coming. They're not laughing anymore. Just wait, you still don't know what awaits you after the war ends. But that's not all, friends. Last night was very, very intense. In response to Putin's terrible, horrific threats and the massive shelling of Ukraine, Ukraine launched more than 300 drones at Russia last night. All 4 Moscow airports were shut down. And today I came across a comment from one outraged Russian. He was like, righteous anger? The gist of it goes something like this. Every day on TV, I hear that with our precision strikes, we've already destroyed all the facilities in Ukraine for drone production, all the aircraft, everything has been destroyed. And yet, each time, more and more Ukrainian drones are flying into Russia. How is this possible? Asks this deep Russian, a representative of the so-called deep people. And today, they hit some very interesting, strategically important targets. I'll tell you about that in just a couple of minutes. But for now, I want to remind you that we have an important fundraiser for repairing equipment for the legendary Freedom of Russia Legion, which is fighting for Ukraine. Both the Legionnaires and Caesar have recorded a message for you friends. For the viewers of this channel, please take a look.
Честь имею. Мы, бойцы Легиона Свобода России, обращаемся к зрителям канала Бориса Тизенгаузена. На фронте машина – это жизнь. Это наш шанс добраться до своих, подвести боеприпасы и эвакуировать раненых. Но каждый день мы теряем машину из-за дронов, обстрелов и мин. Сейчас нам нужны средства, чтобы наши колеса снова крутились. Каждый донат – это шанс выжить и бороться дальше. За свободу, за правду.
Equipment at the front is truly worth its weight in gold right now. They simply can't repair it fast enough. But friends, you can see with your own eyes that Putin's summer offensive has stalled, the autumn offensive has stalled, because our defenders stand like titans, protecting our land, and the rear provides support. And this is something that Russia doesn't have and never will. So friends, let's help our defenders. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. There is Mono and PayPal for those who want to help from abroad. And if for some reason you don't see the payment details here, there's always a QR code you can use to access the fundraiser as well. And to each of you, I always say a huge thank you, both from myself personally and from the hundreds and hundreds of our fighters whom we've helped. You are a great force. So friends, where did it hit last night? Ukrainian drones attacked chemical plants in the Novgorod and Smolensk regions. A chronicle of a chemical night. A synchronized attack was carried out on 2 strategic enterprises of the Akron holding in different regions. It was very detailed, well done. A carefully planned operation to knock out specific production lines. So in Veliki Novgorod, that's about 900 kilometers from the border, they flew in unnoticed. Can you imagine, where are the air defense systems? That Russian was asking, so where is it? How did it happen? One more little question. In general, local residents report a series of explosions, a powerful glow that could be seen even from the city center. The local governor, of course, from under the baseboard, from under the bed, declared that everything was shot down. Everything was shot down, but as always, the debris fell on the plant. So conveniently that it caused a fire. So this time it was the plant that shot down the Ukrainian drones. And I read in the local chats what people were saying. The windows were shaking, the sky was red. What is this? What does it smell like? Close the windows, and so on. That's how it happens. And the second plant is already in the Smolensk region, the Dorogobuj plant. Also an asset of Akron. They hit it too, and not only the plant, but also struck the upper Dniprovskaya CHP, which supplies power to this industrial hub. So they didn't just hit the plant, they also cut off the power. Why exactly these 2 plants? What makes them so important? The thing is, both plants produce ammonium nitrate. Obviously, in peacetime, it's a fertilizer, but in wartime, it's the main component for industrial explosives. It's also used in the production of gunpowder and solid rocket fuel. In general, the locals there are, of course, furious. Yeah, how could this happen? What will happen if a strike hits the ammonia workshop? And did they manage to drain it into the reservoirs in time? If the ammonia storage blows up, we're all done for here. This isn't an oil depot. Gas masks won't help here. And friends, it definitely will blow up because you shouldn't be making explosives that you'll then use against Ukraine. And they're saying that soon they'll reach Murmansk. They'll reach Murmansk. They can reach anywhere. By the way, right now they're discussing the windrows in local forums over there. In other words, what will happen if they hit the ammonia storage? Where will the wind carry it? Those poisonous clouds. That's what it's come to, huh, Russians? Instead of just living a normal life, raising your kids, you're tracking where it's going to go. That chemical cloud. According to the latest data, five workshops at the plant have been shut down. Well, all workshops, whichever is correct. God, now I'm definitely going to get hit with Dahl's dictionary. All right then, go ahead, bring it on. So what does this mean? The geography of fear is expanding. Up until now, the Novgorod region was considered a super safe zone. Production could have been moved there, storage could have been moved there. Now there are no safe zones in the Russian Federation. So both factories are giant powder kegs. Drones, Ukrainian drones, have one important feature. If they didn't finish the job this time, they'll definitely finish it next time. And here's the message to everyone working for the Russian war machine, including if your relatives work at that factory or any close or important people to you. Well, now for them, it's a game of Russian roulette. You've seen that drones can come 9 times to finish off a factory. They'll come here too. If suddenly... You know, this is already a life hack that should be put up on a note at both factories. Just print it out on a little piece of paper and hang it up. So, if suddenly at your explosives factory the lights go out, it might be that they're out for you forever. That is, there's a good chance that at that very moment you'll find yourself at a concert, you know whose. But that's not all. This isn't just the cherry on top, it's the pumpkin on the cake. In this case, for the first time, Ukraine attacked a Russian oil field. Long-range drones from the Alpha Special Operations Center of the SBU struck the Filanovsky oil production platform, which belongs to Lukoil. This is the first time Ukraine has struck Russian infrastructure related to oil extraction in the Caspian Sea. Can you imagine where the drones hit? 4 hits on the platform. As a result, oil and gas production was halted at more than 20 serviced wells. These rigs serviced the wells. Well, what can I say? Now, it's not just oil refining that Ukraine is attacking, but also oil production. As they say, a new location has been unlocked. This Filanovsky field is simply the jewel of Lukoil, the largest in the Caspian sector, with reserves of 129 million tons. And why is this much more problematic for the Russians than strikes on oil refineries? Because with refineries, well, you can still find some parts somewhere, get pipes, weld them, and so on. An offshore platform is an extremely complex engineering structure. It's just packed with Western equipment, drilling pumps, automation, and so on. Repairing a platform under sanctions is practically impossible. Western service companies have left. Chinese companies obviously will give you parts that aren't quite the same. It will break down even faster. Basically, you'll have to mothball the well. And what does it mean to mothball a well? An offshore one. It's simply the death of that well. That's it. Now, here's the most delicate point. Why was this attack so precise, so masterfully executed? The thing is, oil from these wells is transported through the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, through a pipeline that carries not only Russian oil, but also oil from Kazakhstan. 80% of the oil is from Kazakhstan, and American companies operate at those fields, so it's also American oil. So, when it comes to money, here's what happens. And all this oil gets mixed together, and then sent through the consortium. Now look at what happened here. How the Ukrainian drones, especially their operators, and even more so those who planned the operation, acted. They struck the platforms, meaning they're simply cutting off Russian oil from this pipeline consortium. So that American companies or Kazakhstan wouldn't protest again, no problem. They hit the Russian platforms, leaving the American and Kazakh oil intact, but not the Russian. Russia was using this consortium, these pipelines, as a shield. In other words, they were mixing their oil in there and saying, you don't strike here, American oil is flowing through these pipes. No. See how it works out? But they found a solution. They don't touch the pipeline, they hit the platforms that fill the pipeline. Now that's smart. And now Mr. Tokayev is probably breaking out in a cold sweat since the fighting has moved to the Caspian, and strikes are hitting Russian oil refining and transport infrastructure. And not so long ago, after the strike on the port of Novorossiysk, a terminal was put out of commission. From this consortium, this common fund, at that time, the leadership of Kazakhstan openly protested. I remember that, and it really outraged me. Well, you didn't protest to Russia about this war, about the killing of Ukrainians, but to Ukraine. Oh, what a scandal that they dared to target infrastructure which, let me remind you, Russia uses to make money and then sends that money to fund the war. So in fact, that money goes to shells and missiles that are killing us here in Ukraine. Oh, what a protest indeed. Well then, the only right decision for the leadership of Kazakhstan is to quickly look for alternatives to Russian pipelines. And for the Kremlin, this is yet another signal from the Ukrainian armed forces and special services that in the Black Sea, you, meaning the rats, have been driven into your holes. In the Sea of Azov, you've been driven into your holes, and now they've reached the Caspian as well. And it will go on and on and on. And here I always say, I have never mixed up the opinion and position of Kazakhstan's leadership with the opinion of the people of Kazakhstan. That's why I have many subscribers from there. I send you my warmest regards and express my immense gratitude for your support of Ukraine. And friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We're not just fighting Russian propaganda here, which Putin spends astronomical amounts of money on, but we're also exposing lies. All the lies of this whole dictatorial clique, so make sure to subscribe. And then a miracle happened. Today I was reading the news. It's simply a miracle. They uncovered a terrible secret in Europe. In other words, Europe has finally put two and two together. That's a bit of good-natured irony right there. And it turns out, look at the conclusion they've reached, that if drones are flying over your military bases in Europe, and at the same time Russian ships with fully or partially Russian crews are passing by in the sea nearby, these things might be connected. Sherlock, Poirot, Hercule Holmes, Agatha Christie, and all the rest are giving a standing ovation. Standing here, you see? The investigators have found a connection between the flights of unknown, unidentified drones over Germany and the fact that at the same time a Russian ship is passing by just 20 kilometers from that spot. Can you imagine? It turns out that maybe that's where these drones are launched from. In general, a joint investigation built. Welt found a connection between these massive drone flights, but that's not the point. I'll tell you more about this news at the end, how many cases there are. Well, nothing in the end, I'll tell you now. So somehow, secret reports from German law enforcement agencies ended up in the hands of investigators. And it turned out that since the beginning of this year, 1,072 incidents involving 1955 unidentified drones have been recorded. Wow, more than 1,000 incidents. Most of them happen in the evening, and often they fly in whole groups. So, in general. According to Bild, an analysis of the navigation tracks of ships that were in the area at the same time as the drone activity revealed some striking coincidences. One example is the Russian cargo ship Lauga, near which German police spotted 7 drones on May 16th. A few days later, the vessel arrives in Belgium, where it is inspected, but nothing is found. There were similar situations with several other ships, which formerly belonged to foreign companies, but have repeatedly undergone maintenance at the Prigoli shipyard in Kaliningrad. In other words, this is an enterprise connected to Russian military structures. What are they doing there? At the shipyard, they were welding things on and off, installing false bottoms and bulwarks. It's hard to say exactly what modifications were made. So, how does all of this actually work, technically speaking? Launching a drone is not like launching a fighter jet from an aircraft carrier. You don't need a long runway, so in reality, it's much simpler. And we're not talking about small quadcopters here. We're talking about fixed-wing drones which they call Krylo. For example, the Russian Orlan-10 or Supercam or modified Chinese commercial models. They can easily fly 120 kilometers like the Orlan or up to 600 kilometers autonomously. So it's more than enough range to launch from a vessel 20 kilometers away, fly into the base of Germany, film a NATO base, and return. There are some nuances here. It's unlikely that the Russians are launching their own drones. those Orlan, Supercam, and so on. Most likely they're using cheap, modified Chinese models and launching those. Even if one gets shot down somewhere or crashes, so what? It's got nothing to do with us. You can buy something like that on AliExpress. It's true, you can. They cost between $2,000 and $5,000. These drones don't need a runway. They're launched from a portable catapult. It can be pneumatic or rubber powered, and off it goes. It can be assembled on the deck in 5 minutes and hidden away just as quickly. When they need to bring it back, it can return either by deploying a parachute, landing somewhere near the ship on the water quickly. They just get to it, hook it, and bring it on board. Or else with a net, though I'm not sure. Some kind of net is hung up for it. It flies right into the net by coordinates, so it doesn't crash on the deck and the net catches it. So that's another way to bring it back. But look at what the Russians are doing. They're breaking into the security protocols of NATO bases. With these cheap drones, that is, they immediately record and capture everything. What gets turned on, at what frequencies, and so on. To hide the evidence. So the ship arrived 3 days later, somewhere in a Belgian port. In those 3 days, they could have already sunk the catapult, taken everything valuable, dismantled the drone, burned it, destroyed it, or at least tried to. You'd have to search that ship thoroughly. How big is it? A 200-meter-long giant. In the Belgian port, the inspection was very superficial. They went into the cabins, glanced around, checked some documents. Obviously, if they refitted something at the shipyard, maybe in the engine room, put up some fake walls, you just won't find them. You'd have to take apart the ship's floor, search with special equipment. No one wants to do that right now. But 1,000, more than 1,000 drones, come on. How do you counter that? Take this ship apart just once. Bring it into port, strip it down to the bare bones, then put it back together. Even if you don't find anything, believe me, after that, no one will want to get involved anymore. And I'm sure you'll find something. I'm sure of it. So there are already a ton of investigations. For example, there's a Scandinavian investigation where journalists from Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland released a film called Shadow War. It's an excellent investigation. They proved that Russian fishing trawlers and research vessels are simply packed with equipment for eavesdropping, surveillance, and they also launch things. Drones are mapping everything, wind farms, underwater cables, they do all of this. In other words, Russia is a parasitic state. Is it not possible to have something adequate near your waters? Some kind of vessel that's actually engaged in scientific work. It's definitely spying, it's eavesdropping, and it's preparing some kind of nasty stuff. How do you fight this? Like really tough measures? You can fight it technically, meaning you can triangulate the signal. Modern electronic warfare tools allow you to pinpoint the location from which the control is coming within seconds. Because if a drone is being controlled, if it's connected by a signal, you can shoot it down and take it apart. That's the best option, not just observing. But out of 1,000 drones, even if they shot down 1,072, even if they shot one down and took it apart, I couldn't find any information about it. So, in general, there are a lot of questions here. And as for Russia, look at them. It's brilliant and cheap because no one is opposing them. Why risk using some kind of planes or reconnaissance aircraft when you can just launch a cheap drone from a civilian vessel? And the vessel is protected by maritime law, so you have no right to interfere. Simple as that. So, of course, you need to take them apart, of course, arrest them, of course, detain them, of course, make things tough for them. Europe, you have the most wonderful, well, I'm saying this in quotes, skill, and that's bureaucracy. European bureaucracy can wear down even the dead. So turn on your bureaucracy, inspect ships in the Danish Straits. All Russian tankers, every single one, delay their deliveries for a week. Believe me, there will be such an outcry that all your drones will disappear from your airspace. And one more statement. Listen, not a day goes by, I'm monitoring this right now, not a single day goes by, without Russia declaring that it has no intention of attacking Europe. Lavrov has popped up again. Not only did he make this statement, in other words, Russia once again says it has no intention of attacking Europe and is ready to formalize this legally within the framework of collective guarantees. Lavrov made this statement. We are not harboring any aggressive plans against either NATO or the European Union. We are ready to provide written guarantees in a legal document. According to him, Moscow stands by its words. But on the other side, on the European side, there is an openly militaristic frenzy. Listen, why don't you just write those guarantees on the back of the Budapest Memorandum right away? On that very agreement where you promised to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. So you don't waste paper, just write all the guarantees right there. And to make sure everyone finally believes Lavrov, he made another statement. I'm just quoting. In December 2021, 2 months before the start of the so-called special military operation, we were not thinking about anything except a peaceful settlement. So, 2 months before the full-scale invasion, it's as if they weren't planning anything yet. It was all spontaneous. That's what they claim. Let me just remind you that they annexed Crimea back in 2014 and occupied part of Donbass. So in reality, they had been planning this for a very, very long time. They started planning right after nothing happened to them following Georgia. No sanctions were imposed. And now here's the news. From the world of the golden calf, from the world of the golden antelope, from the world of Scrooge McDuck swimming in gold coins, the US wants to bring Russia back into the global economy. The plans have already been passed on to Europe. The Wall Street Journal reports this to us. And American officials state that Europe's approach to the reparations loan will quickly exhaust Russia's frozen funds. At the same time, the US is proposing to involve the heads of financial corporations and billionaires in the reconstruction of Ukraine. In that case, I think these funds will be depleted even faster. Well, just imagine if the German troops hadn't finished off Hitler, hadn't pressed on. And then, somewhere in the middle, someone suggested, let's stop right now. Hitler, well, we understand that you're a monster, that you killed a huge number of people, but how about we bring you back into the global economy, huh? They would have invited him to London or Washington, rolled out the red carpet. They would have laid it out for him and said, it's okay, it just didn't work out this time. We'll bring you back into the global economy, let you save up some money. Maybe you started off on the wrong foot, but once you save up, maybe next time you'll succeed. And in the meantime, Hitler, let's start some joint projects together. I don't even know how to comment on all this, honestly. European officials who have reviewed these plans are outraged and concerned. One of the sources said that overall there is no confidence. This phrase is just amazing. Overall, there is no confidence as to whether these proposals should even be taken seriously. The USA. Believe me, when it comes to money, it should be taken seriously. By the way, I also don't rule out that this could be some kind of trick on Donald Trump's part. To lull the vigilance of Russians, to make them sign something now, he'll say, I've already stopped 9 wars, or maybe 59 wars, force them to sign a peace plan, and then say, well, listen, Putin, I wanted to bring you back into the world economy. I really did, but the European markets are closed. The Europeans don't want you to come back. There's nothing I can do about them, so sorry, but that's how it is. I don't rule out that this scenario is also possible, but the very fact that right now that someone even has the nerve to talk about bringing Putin back into the world economy, into global politics, when rockets and drones are flying into Ukraine every day, when innocent civilians, children, and the elderly are dying. How can anyone even bring themselves to say that? To say, yes, oh yes, you killed everyone, what, hundreds of thousands of people? Forget about it, let's go to the banquet. One more time, I'll just fly to Vancourage. How is this even possible? Can someone explain this to me? Yes, I know, I understand that politics, honor, conscience, and morality, they all go in completely different directions, but still, not this cynically. Well, friends, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. The front is holding thanks to our Ukrainian titans. A huge thank you to those in the rear, and I really ask you, let's help the Legionnaires. They really, really need our help right now. The link to donate is in the description of this video. Wishing us all a peaceful day and glory to Ukraine.